Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, Arbitrary Arguments and Keyword Arguments. In this lecture, I'm going to define what arbitrary arguments are. We will see the syntax of these arguments and what is the meaning of asterisk args. We will understand the meaning of keyword arguments, and we will see also the syntax of these arguments and what the meaning of double asterisk keyword args. We will see how we can use asterisk args and double asterisk keyword args together in the function definition, and I will end up this lecture by a quick summary. So let's get started. First of all, let's start talking about arbitrary arguments. Sometimes we don't know how many arguments will be passed into a function. Or in other words, we can say that the function could accept a different or a variable number of arguments. So the function can work regardless how many arguments you want to pass. Example about this case when we use the built-in functions like min and max. So for example, I can use min function to calculate the minimum between 3 numbers, 8 numbers, 5 numbers, or any number of numbers. In this use case, you have to use arbitrary arguments in order to make your function accept a variable number of arguments. For this use case, and if you want to build a function with this capability, which means your function accepts any number of arguments, we have to use arbitrary arguments. Let's see the syntax now. It's very easy. We saw like this syntax before in a previous lecture. So when we define a function, we say function name, then we list our parameters. When I put asterisk args at the end here, in this way, we mention that we want our function to accept any number of arguments. And the remaining is exactly the same like the normal function. We have statements within our function, and the function could or could not return some results variable. You have to know also that when I say asterisk args, args is a name that most of people use, but it's not a compulsory to use the word args. So you can put A, B, C, or any valid name in Python programming language. Before we move to PyCharm to see some code examples, there are two notes you have to keep in your mind. The first one, when I use asterisk args, the function receives the arguments as a tuple of ordered items. So within your function, you have to use args as just a tuple of values. The second note that when you want to define a function with asterisk args, if there is no double asterisk keyword args, asterisk args must be the last parameter in the parameters list. So this one should be the last parameter. Let's move now to the code session. First of all, let me show you this simple example. Assume I have a function, it's named dummy, and it takes two parameters, a and b, and then it takes asterisk args. Within the function, I will print the value of a, the value of b, and then I will check what is the type of args. So what is the nature of these arguments here? And then I will print the type and the argument themselves, and then I will just print some dashes to separate between the printed statements. Let me use now my dummy function. If I say dummy 1, 2, in this case I pass only two values. The first one, which is 1, will be assigned to A. The second one, which is 2, will be assigned to B. If I run, you will note that the value of A is 1, the value of B is 2. Now the arg type is tuple, so the data type here is a tuple, and the content is nothing. It's an empty tuple. Now let me put 3, 4, 5. Run again. Now you will note that 1 has been assigned to A, 2 has been assigned to B, but now everything from 3 to 5 has been assigned to the tuple args, and you see here. Now if I put 6, 7 and run, again you will see that args has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as an ordered tuple. So the takeaway that when we use asterisk args, all the values after the ordered and positional arguments, in this case A and B, will be assigned to args. Now let's see another example. Assume I want to build a function that calculates the minimum of number of numbers. So I will say diff, its name minimum, and I will say its asterisk args. I will say the minimum equal to args 0. Why I am able to do that? Because args within my function, it's just a tuple, so I can use index with. After that, I will say for each a inside args, I will compare between a and the minimum. If a is smaller than the minimum, I will consider the minimum equal to a. And once the loop scan all the items inside args, I'm going to return the minimum, which is m in this case. Now let me use my function. I will say print minimum. I will put 1, 2, 3, 4. Run. As you see here, I got 1. Let me put now 0, -1. Run. As you see, I got -1. And you can note, because I'm using here asterisk args, I can pass as many as I want from these arguments here when I call the function. And that's all about asterisk args. Now let's talk about keyword arguments. Keyword arguments are similar to arbitrary arguments, but the difference now that you can send the argument name with the argument value. We noted that when we use arbitrary arguments, we send just values, but here you can send the name and the value. Let's see the syntax now. If you want to use double asterisk keyword args, I will define my function as any normal function, but I have to put double asterisk keyword args here as the last parameter in the parameters list. And the remaining are exactly the same. You have to put statements, return if you want your function returns some data. You have to know that when you use double asterisk keyword args within your function, keyword args will be received as a dictionary of unordered items, because we know that a dictionary is an ordered collection. Also, you have to know that if you want to use double asterisk keyword args, it must be the last parameter in the parameters list. Now let's move to PyCharm IDE to see some simple example. The first example that I want to show you is the following. Again, I will assume I have a dummy function. It takes two positional arguments, which are a and b, and then it takes double asterisk keyword args. I will print a, b, I will print the type of keyword args and the actual values of keyword args. Now let me use dummy function. First of all, I will say dummy 1, 2, and I will run. As you see here, A1 has been assigned to A, 2 has been assigned to B, and nothing has been assigned to the keyword args, but we can note that the type is a dictionary and the value is an empty dictionary. Now let me pass some keyword arguments. Let me say name equal to Samir, age equal to 40, for example, and I will run. As you see here, 1 has been assigned to A, 2 has been assigned to B, and now this variable, which is keyword args, it's a dictionary and it has all the keyword arguments that I have passed after the positional arguments. And from this we can understand that using keyword args, you can pass as many as you want from these keyword arguments and you can use them inside your function. Let's see now another example about double asterisk keyword args. I will show you the following function. It's named fruit colors. It take only keyword arguments, and because it's a dictionary, I will say for fc in keyword args.items, and we know that items is a function that can be used with dictionary, which will give me a list of tuples, and each tuple is one item of the dictionary, represent the key and the value. I will say color. The color of if is C. So I am going to pass the fruit name and the color of this fruit, and then I will say print this statement. Let's use this function now. So I will say fruit colors. I will say banana equal to yellow and run. So the color of banana is yellow. Now let's put another argument. I will say, for example, tomato equal to red and run. So two statements have been printed because I put here two arguments. And don't forget, you can pass as many as you want from these keyword arguments. The last idea that I want to talk about is about the question that could rise in your mind right now. What if I want to use together asterisk args and double asterisk keyword args? In this case, you have to put asterisk args first and you have to put double asterisk keyword args second. So asterisk args must be before the last parameter in the parameters list. Double asterisk keyword args must be the last parameter in the parameters list. And I use here the word must because otherwise you will get syntax error. Let's see the last example in our code session for this lecture. So let's say I have a function, it's named general function, and it takes some parameters. The first two are positional arguments a and b without default value. Then I have the parameter c and d, and I put here a default value for c and d. Then I use asterisk args, then double asterisk keyword args. So the order here is very important. So first, parameters without default values, then parameters with default values, then asterisk args, and finally double asterisk args. Now let's see how we can use this function in some example. Let's say I want to call my function, which is general function, for the following value 1, 2, then c is changed, d is changed, 5, 6, 7, name equal to Samir, title equal to engineer. If I run, you will see all the values of A, B, C, D, the args, and you note here 5, 6, 7, which is the first value after the parameter 5, 6, 7 has been assigned to args, and the two keywords arguments has been assigned to keyword args variable. Don't forget that these arguments are optional. So for example, I can choose to remove these keyword arguments. If I run, You will note now the keyword arguments are empty. Also, I can remove the arbitrary arguments because also they are optional. So if I run, you will note now that it's empty. And here don't forget that C and D are two parameters that have default value. So if I run, C will take I am C, which is the default value. D will take I am D, which is the default value. But if I remove 1 and 2 and run, I will get an error. Why error? Because here we have two parameters without any default value and they are not optional. In this case, the function don't know what to do with these parameters, so an exception will be raised as you see in this example. And that's all for this code session. Now let me summarize what we have learned in this lecture. First of all, arbitrary arguments and keyword arguments are two ways to implement a function accepting a variable number of arguments. When you use keyword arguments, you can send the argument alongside with its name. Arbitrary arguments, which is known by convention as args, usually received as a tuple of ordered items inside your function, whereas keyword arguments, by convention keyword args, and they are received as a dictionary of unordered items within your function. You have to know that asterisk args and double asterisk args must be the last parameters and args come before keyword args. Now please refer to the file Arbitrary Arguments and Keyword Arguments Challenges, in which you will find some challenges to practice what you have learned in this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.